everyone, it's Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and a felt stitching and sewing video tutorial. Today we are going to create some felt and sewn little pillow dough bowl filler pillows for Patriotic. Full disclosure, the pillow that features the stitched daisy that has this one right here, this was inspired by a pillow I saw on Pinterest and also on the Instagram Simply Eileen, and I am going to link that down below, as well as I believe she sells the PDF if you want to make it using her pattern. I am using Binzy dies today to create mine, so I was able to die cut the felt pieces and then I'm going to place them on my fabric. Let's talk about where the dies come from today. The daisy flowers are the Daisy Flowers Large and Daisy Flowers Small from Binzy Design. These have been out for a while. These do not have stitching holes in them. I want to let you guys know that right off the bat. And I thought it would be important to show how you can stitch with dies that don't have the stitching holes. So some do, some don't. I am taking a 6.5 inch square piece of fabric. This is a Moda fabric. I will have to look it up. If it's still, I'm pretty sure it's still available. I will link it down below. And I am fusing SF101 on the back. This is a Pellon product and it's just going to give some stabilization to this fabric. This fabric is like a woven and it doesn't hold its shape super great. It likes to roll up and stuff. And plus I like my pillow finishes to have a little bit of interfacing on them because I have found that I think they sew up nicer, whether it's cross stitch, felt, whatever it might be. So I have gone ahead and fused that to the back. I have die cut my components here from felt and you're going to see me kind of play around with those, manipulate. The leaves and the flower center are from a set called Flower Power, and the flower center has the stitching holes in it. The leaves do not. The button is one from my stash. It is a doodlebug button. Anybody else just have an obsession with the doodlebug buttons and have them in all the colors still, even though they're a little hard to find now. But any button is going to work here. So what I'm doing first is I am playing around with my dies, with my die cut pieces and seeing what do I want to do. When I am happy with the placement, I am going to go ahead and use some pins. I love these little house pins and I am going to place those in my leaves and I'm going to remove everything else for just a minute. Now the reason being for this is I like to plan out how I'm going to do my stitching first, and then I start placing whatever's in the background down and I start stitching that, and then we'll add the next layer and the next layer. I am taking, I believe, 2 to 3 strands of embroidery floss and I am stitching with a number 5 sharp tip tulip needle, stitching the leaves to my fabric. And again, that has that interfacing on the back, so a sharp tip needle is just going to be great for piercing the felt, the fabric, and the interfacing. And because there are not stitching holes, this really gives you the ability to stitch however you want. Have fun with it, do decorative stitches, do specialty stitches. Again, just have fun. Definitely just have fun with it. So I am going to do this for all of the leaves. And you will notice that I do it a little different on this one than I do for the second pillow finish. And the second pillow finish actually was finished a whole year after the first one. That's right. I moved this around in my craft room from place to place for a year. And when we get to that part of the video, you are going to hear how that was a giant mistake. So I don't know why it took me so long to finish this project. Literally, it took me, I don't know, 30 minutes maybe to finish the second pillow. Now this pillow is very detailed, has lots of steps to it because I added a lot of things to this particular pillow with all the stitching and beading. And I wanted to include both of these versions just to really show the versatility of your dies, felt cutting dies. I love the Benzie dies. I love Benzie felt, as you guys know, and I just wanted to show some different things, maybe kind of stretch your imagination, if you will. I know I talk about that whenever I share some felt stitching videos here on my channel, but I really want to encourage you to think outside of the box with your felt stitching dies. They don't all have to be plush. So I'm going to finish stitching these leaves, and then we're going to start working on our large daisy flower. Okay, so we're going to take the next layer for our design, which is the large red daisy, and I'm going to pin it in place in a couple of spots. You could use a little glue down the center of your petals or the center of your flower if you want to. I'll be honest, I like to avoid glue if at all possible, just because I don't always know exactly where I'm going to start stitching or where I might feel like stitching. So I avoid glue. Now I am going to do a different stitch for this particular step. You will notice in the finished pillow, I am coming from the outside of the petals, and I'm doing just this little kind of whip stitch all the way around the flower design. I'm trying to keep it as even as possible, but part of the beauty of this is that it is handmade, hand done. The imperfection is the beautiful part of this project, and I am simply going to stitch around each of the petals, again using, I wish I could remember, 2 or 3. I usually use 3 strands of floss, so I'm going to say 3 strands of embroidery floss and my number 5 tulip sharp tip needle. And this step probably was one that took the longest because there are a lot of petals on this beautiful daisy, and we have to stitch all the way around it. I am going to speed up this part of the video so we can get on to attaching the other layers. Now, if you don't already know, if at any time in a sped up video, you can always watch it slower by clicking the gear in the upper, I believe it's the upper right corner of the YouTube videos, and you can speed up videos, slow them down, whatever you need to do. Once we have finished stitching on our red flower, and I'm going to just continue going all the way around, we are going to grab our next layer, and this is going to be a white layer. This layer is from the Daisy Flowers small set, I believe. And for this one, we are going to stitch down the petals with some navy thread. And again, I'm going to whip stitch or kind of come around and do little tacking stitches all the way around, but this time with my dark blue navy thread. Okay, off camera, I did stitch on the flower center, and I do apologize. I had meant to include that part in the video, but I must have not had my camera turned on. So I just stitched that on, and again, I did more of a decorative stitch with that, just something that I thought looked really busy and fun. And then I added my button to the center. Okay, let's talk about the beading. I am speeding this up quite a bit. I'm using a beading needle, and I'm using several different kinds of beads from Hobby Lobby. I have chosen to speed it up in this video. I am going to do a detailed tutorial coming soon on adding beading for another project, but it will be very similar to this. I'll just have zoomed the camera out a little bit, so I think it'll be a little bit easier to talk about, and I'm going to do it in real time, do the video in real time for you guys, so stay tuned for that. However, I'm using these little triangle trays from Simon Says Stamp to hold my beads. I will list the bead colors I'm using, the size, etc., all down in the description. I do know all of the beads I'm using today are from Hobby Lobby. I'm doing little silver clusters at the tip of each of the red petals for the large daisy. So 3 little beads on the tip of that, and that beautiful silver, I'm saying silver, but watch, that's not the color. Again, I will list that color down below. And I'm doing this for each. I really wanted to have lots of beautiful beading to accentuate this daisy. So not only does it have the decorative stitching, but lots and lots of really fun beading for this. And it does take a little bit of time, but I think it is worth it. It is so cute and so fun. Definitely work in a little tray. If you have these little trays like this, if you're a paper crafter and have these already, or just pick them up from Simon Says Stamp or any kind of little beading tray, it's going to be so helpful so your beads don't go, you know, spilling and scattering everywhere. I do not recommend using the tall tube with the lid open. They're good. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't do it, but I'm saying don't do it because I have done that before and knocked over my beads and had beads everywhere, and you get real mad. Or I get real mad. Okay, so I'm going to knot that on the back. Now, yes, that's a hot mess on the back. Don't worry about that. No one's ever going to see it. Okay, so next up, we are going to add some additional beading. I want the white petals also to have decorative beads, but I want to do something different for those. I thought red and blue beads on this would look amazing. So we are going to go in, and I am using the same color of floss for bead. So I'm going to do all my red beading first, and then I'm going to go back and do the blue beading because I want to match the embroidery floss to the blue beads. I don't want it to be, you know, red beads and you can see the white floss or blue floss, or use just the red floss for all of the beads and you see that for the blue bead, or for the red beads, but you see it for the blue bead. You guys know what I'm saying. So I am matching it to each of my beads. What I do is I come up from the back, I slip my bead over the beading needle, and then I go around the bead back down through the back. That's just kind of how I like to attach mine. Keep in mind, you could definitely do lots of different styles of decoration here. And this is where I made the decision to add some extra decorative touches to the center of my flower. I had gone around and done kind of that back stitch kind of look. And then I thought, wouldn't it be fun to have the red floss go around the edge, or come from those same stitching holes out to the outer edge, and I really love it. I think that makes a huge difference in this finished design. So there I am adding all of that. So cute. Gonna snip the ends. We're gonna add our red button to the center, and I'm gonna sew the red button on. I want that white pop of floss, so I'm gonna sew it on with white floss. You can just kind of see the whole pillow taking shape here. So fun. Okay, after we have added on the button, I still need to finish adding my beads. I have the red ones, so now I need to grab my blue beads, and we're going to sew those down the center of each of the petals. I'm also going to take some white floss, and I decided, I think I actually did the white floss first. I'm going to do like these little branch things that come out. There's going to be some little lazy daisy stitches, and then some additional little white beads out and around, stitched to the outer part of the pillow. Again, totally inspired by that Simply Eileen pillow. You can find that on Pinterest or Instagram, and I'm going to tag her, or link, pardon me, to her down in the description of this video. And I'm stitching right over some of the other felt that I've already stitched down, just doing kind of a little back stitch line. Doesn't have to be perfect at all. And then I'm just doing some little lazy daisies here. So fun. You can really make this as extravagant or as simple as you like. So now we're going to take the white beads. I've used 4 different beads for this pillow: white, silver, red, and blue. And of course, yes, very patriotic. I leave my patriotic up all summer long, and then, put it away when I get out my fall things. I'm kind of one of those that likes the Patriotic decor out for most of the summer. Okay, once we have that, let's go ahead and do another one. I felt like I needed to have one on each side to really balance it out. Maybe even a third one would have been cute, although I didn't do it. And I think the two work nicely. You will notice that to get that odd number for visual interest, your visual triangle, if you will, I have 3 leaves on my pillow. That was very much done on purpose. 2 on one side, 1 on the other, and that kind of gives you that little off balance, but still to your eye, it looks really, really good. Not so matchy, but not crazy either. Although crazy is relative. There's a lot of beading and a lot of stuff going on this pillow. Okay, so once I have my little beads here, we'll just tie this off on the back, and then I do have to go in, add in my blue beads as I mentioned a minute ago, and then we're going to be ready to put the pillow together. Now, in this video, I am sharing 2 different ways to place the backing on, and I'm going to leave in portions of this one and we'll talk about it, but I did change it up for the second pillow, and I'm going to talk about that as well because there's really no right or wrong way. I've done it both ways, and it's really just personal preference. I'm kind of preferring the second way, the one I just did, compared to this. However, you do whatever you like best. So if anybody has watched my pillow finishing tutorial for the Valentine's Quaker from Primrose Cottage, I will link to that video down in the description below. I sew 2 pieces of fabric together. I leave kind of an opening in the back and I seam rip it there after I have sewn the front to the back, and I'm able to pull or turn out the pillow. Goodness, words are hard. Turn out the pillow from that. And then just kind of, you can do a blind stitch to shut it. I did not love how it looked. And a year after I completely sewed this pillow, I did put a patch over it to hide that. Right now, what I'm doing is I am sewing on my rickrack, and I am using the Riley Red Vintage Trim Large Rickrack from Lori Holt. I love this. I have it in tons of colors. I use it all the time. What I like to do for my rickrack is I do not like to curve it around the edges of sewing on my pillow. What I like to do is cut 4 separate pieces, sew them each down, and then you'll notice my rickrack is slightly longer than my pillow. My pillow does measure 6.5 inches, so it will be a 6-inch finished pillow. After I have sewn down all 4 sides, I will trim off that excess rickrack, and then we are going to take our pillow back and we're going to place it front to front. So the front of the pillow to the front, or the front facing part of the pillow to the front of the back. So your outside or your inside pieces are facing out, and we're going to place those front to front and sew around all 4 edges. So I have my fabric here. This is where I have sewn those 2 pieces of fabric together. I've left a little opening, or I stitched it with a really long stitch so I can seam rip it easily. And I am going to sew around the entire pillow with a 1/4 inch seam. So that's going to give me a 1/4 inch seam allowance, which gives us the 6-inch pillow. So I went ahead and did that. And now I'm going to snip my corners. So I like to snip them at an angle. I also seam rip that little opening in the back. I am not going to go into detail on that. I will link to the video where I did this. And you will see it. I will show you here on camera. I don't like it. This fabric does not hide it at all, and it was not a good call for this pillow. So I'm going to fix that here in just a bit. So I'm going to turn my pillow out. If you have a point turner, I do find that super helpful to get those nice crisp corners in your pillow finish. So what you're going to want to do is just take that and gently work out the corners. I usually try to work it out with my fingers first, and then I will take the point turner and just gently work that. You don't want to shove it through the corners of your pillow. With all the beading and the button on this one, I would not iron it with your traditional iron. If you have a Laura Star or something, you might be able to go ahead and iron that. If you don't, I don't know that I would heat this up too much with your regular iron. Just kind of smooth it out with your fingers or whatever. So here I am with the point turner just pushing out my corners nicely. The other difference between this pillow and then the second one that we're going to do here in a minute that I fully finished a year later, this one's stuffed with polyester fiber fill. I do not use polyester fiber fill anymore. I did not want to switch this. I probably could have. I probably should have ripped this open before I put a label on the back, but I didn't, and restuff it. There's nothing wrong with it at all. I just prefer wool roving or cotton batting now, and I'm going to use wool roving for the second pillow, and I will show you more of that here in just a minute when we finish the second pillow. But you can see with that seam open now, you would just stitch that up. I am going to actually cut that out of the video simply because I don't love how it looks. I thought it was really just, to be completely transparent, janky. It did not look good. But there are ways to fix things. And that is something I'm really passionate about, whether it's paper crafting or stitching or quilting. Find a way to fix it, make it work, pivot, and adjust. Okay, I stitched this shut. You can see it in this particular fabric. It just shows really bad. This is a great technique if you have a fabric that hides it, but this does not hide it at all. So you can see that does not look great. Even though you wouldn't really see it in like a dough bowl or whatever, I'm going to cover it up with a label. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our second pillow. And again, this was stitched about a year before it was actually finished. I just fully finished this just now in 2025. So I have another 6.5-inch piece of this Moda kind of cross weave type of fabric. It's a woven. I like it. I'm going to, again, iron this to some SF 101 to give it a little stability. This is the front. And then I am taking the Benzie Design Stitchable Nesting Stars, the largest one from here. I've die cut it from white felt, and it does have the stitching holes in it. I'm going to kind of center it, pin it in place, and then that same kind of stitch that we did around the daisy, we are going to do for our star. So the only difference here really is that I have stitching holes to follow. I am going to take some red embroidery floss though, because I want that contrast, just like I did with the white thread on the red daisy or the blue thread on the white daisy. White thread on red daisy, blue thread on white daisy. I hope I said that right. And we're going to take the red thread on the white star. And I am going to go all the way around. And I'm going to speed up the stitching just to save a little time. And I am simply stitching all the way around. And quite honestly, this looks really cute just like this. You could have even stitched like 1776, USA, you know, something like that on here if you wanted to. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you have seen me use the Floral Fringe dies from Benzie Design a lot. I love them. They are the rolled flower dies. We are going to use those as well as the rolled Royce. No, how about rolled rose to adorn the center of the pillow. So this pillow is actually going to feature dimensional flowers in this star center. This pillow has way less stitching than the other one, and I really wanted to show kind of two coordinating pillows, each done a little bit differently. So I'm going to finish stitching around here, and then we are going to fast forward a year, and we're going to finish this. I know for you guys, you won't notice the difference, but nail polish and watch band are going to switch, and we are going to come back and finish our pillow. Okay, just like I did with the first pillow, we are going to tack down our leaves. And I am going to pin down 3 of my leaves with some pins, and then I'm going to stitch down the center with some coordinating floss. Using 3 strands of embroidery floss, I am going to stitch down the center of each leaf, just doing a running stitch. And again, this is personal preference. You can stitch as much or as little. You could go around the whole perimeter of the leaf more with, like, you could do a blanket stitch or a whip stitch, whatever you personally like here. Have fun with it. And I'm going to stitch each of these down. We are not going to want to add any of our dimensional flowers before we form our pillow. So I will be stitching down these leaves. Then we're going to add the rickrack, sew our pillow together, stuff the pillow, and then we're going to assemble any of our dimensional flowers to glue to our pillow. If you want to, you could sew your pillow together. You could use embroidery floss to kind of do a gathering stitch, and you could gather your flowers together and tack them to your pillow. I would do that after you've sewn it together, before you stuff it through the opening. I personally did not want to spend the time doing that, and so I am hot gluing mine. You could also use a liquid glue. It's just going to take a little bit more dry time. So it's completely personal preference how you want to go about that. But I did want to mention that here, that you definitely do not want to add your dimensional flowers before you sew your pillow. It is going to make your job sewing so much harder. I know I've shown the dimensional flowers on wood pieces and other similar items, but I thought it would be really fun to show how you can use them to adorn a pillow in this case. And of course, any of my projects like this, I always like to use in conjunction with my cross stitch, quilting finishes, anything like that. So, oh, so cute. Let's go ahead, grab our rickrack. And again, just like I showed earlier, we're going to take 4 pieces. I am not going to show stitching them again, but I'm going to stitch each of these down the side. I'm using that same Riley red vintage trim from Lori Holt, and I pin it in place, sew around or sew down each side, trim off the excess, and then we are going to take another piece of the fabric backed with the SF 101, and we're going to sew around all 4 sides, and we're going to cut an opening in the back. I will show you that on camera. It's really easy to know which side is the back for this particular one, because obviously this one we've stitched to, and you want to make sure you're just cutting the back, not cutting anything on the front of your pillow. Okay, so I have sewn all of my rickrack on, and I'm snipping off anything hanging off the edge, just cleaning all of that up really nice, keeping it square for now. And then we're going to take our other piece of fabric, 6.5 inch square. It's already got the SF 101 on the back. We're going to pin these together and sew these together. And I like to pin mine. If you like to use clips, you could also do that. I just don't want mine shifting or moving at all, so I go ahead and pin it really, really well. As I'm sewing around, I will remove all of those pins. Place a couple over here. I really do like to pin with things like this. Okay, now that I've sewn around all 4 sides, I am going to pull up the backing, and using some nice sharp scissors, I'm going to cut a little snip, and then I'm going to carefully cut that just a little wider. And then I'm going to notch each of the corners. Don't cut through your stitching, but that's just going to make your corners turn out much, much nicer. We'll give it a little bit of ease, and then we're going to turn our pillow out. Now, because this pillow, unlike the first one, doesn't have tons of beading or a button on it, I did get this turned out really well. I used my point turner, and I am going to give it a quick press. We haven't added anything dimensional really to it yet, and so it's going to be easy to press out really well. I will use the point turner. I'm going to pull out those corners first. If you kind of tug on the rickrack, it does help pull out your corners as well. And as you're turning out anything that you have stitched felt on, I do encourage you to do that kind of gently, because you don't want to tear your felt at all. Okay, perfect. I'm going to give it a quick press, and then we are going to stuff this with wool roving. Now, I chose to stuff this first because I want to have all of my work done. I want to be able to give this a press. I want to be able to press on my label. I use the iron-on labels from Sweetwater. I'm part of their label club. I have been for years and years, so I have quite a little stockpile of labels. You can also purchase customized labels from Sweetwater if you want to via their Etsy shop or their website. And I will link to both their club and their website down below for you in case you're interested. But I want to do that before I add anything dimensional to my pillow, because once I have added anything super dimensional, and these flowers are very dimensional, it is going to be extremely difficult to get a really good press. Now, part of the reason, remember, I love to use the wool roving. A, I don't feel like it moves around as much. And B, when I give it a good press, I can keep my hot iron on it a lot longer than I can with polyester fiber fill. That's going to melt if you keep your iron on it too long. But I like to give it a really good press so it's as flat as possible. And I feel like it the wool roving just does so well with that. So my rule of thumb when stuffing anything, no matter what you're stuffing it with, is to stuff it till you think it's full, and then add a little bit more. So you're going to see a lot of that here. I know I've sped it up just to get through the stuffing part of that. But this is very similar, exactly how I did the poly for the first one, where I stuffed it quite a lot. I'm going to cut a little bit more of my wool roving. You know, I start with what I think I need. It's never as much as I need, never. And I like to stuff it in and kind of feel around, see where there's little holes. Use a chopstick, a point turner, a bamboo stick, whatever you've got, to kind of fill in all those areas. Use small pieces, loft it between your fingers before stuffing. Okay, that's cute. I'm going to do a little bit more though. Remember my rule, stuff it till you think it's full and then add a little bit more. Especially wherever your opening is, I find that you kind of push away from that and you don't want to divot in the back of your pillow finish right where you are filling that full. I'm going to grab just a little bit more because I feel like there is a little hole right there. I'm going to smooth it all down. We're going to grab our upholstery thread and our sharp needle, and we are going to whip stitch this shut, give this a good press, and then we're going to press our label to the back of our pillow. And the stitching I'm doing here is going to be very similar to what I did for the first pillow, except that this one, obviously, I just cut the opening open, and I don't worry too much about making this super neat and tidy because no one's going to see it. The label completely covers this up. And you could even, if you don't have labels, do a little felt patch on the back. I think that would be super cute. You could do like a square, you could do a heart, maybe another little star. Just be aware of what you want to use as a patch for the back of your pillow so that you don't accidentally cut your opening too big or the wrong shape or in the wrong direction. I always do try to plan my label when I'm doing my backs like this so that I know exactly how to close that up and hide and disguise my opening. So you can see that I am just doing kind of a quick little ladder stitch, I guess, just kind of a little whip. And again, I don't worry about it too much. I just like to pull those sides together to close it up. And then I'm going to run this over to my iron and iron my patch on, and then let's get to the fun flower creation of this. Okay, there is our pillow. Now for the flowers, we are going to use the beautiful rolled rose first. Now this one, Odin 8, I had already assembled that one last year. I actually cut that out of the video because it made it all year. I moved it from place to place in my office, and wouldn't you know it, Odin it fell on the floor. Odin found it last week and he tore it up. So I left that in here because that was silly of me. I am using the Floral Fringe die for the center of my rolled rose. I went ahead and die cut that from white felt, rolled it up, hot glued it, and then right around that, we are going to take our rolled rose and we are going to wrap it around the white portion. I love two-tone flowers. You're going to notice that 2 of my flowers on my pillow today are going to have a two-tone. This is the only one that features 2 different floral fringe border dies or floral dimensional dies. The other one is going to have a wool felt ball in the center. And I'm just wrapping this around. It's a beautiful rose. I'm going to hot glue the end. We're going to put hot glue on the back of this and then stick it right to our pillow. And I have my hot glue gun here. It is very, very hot. And I'm going to stick that right down. And this, I planned my flower placement obviously before I stitched down my leaves, knowing my biggest flower was going to go first, and then we're going to work around the rest of them. Okay, this loopy border also from Floral Fringe, we are going to roll this, fold it in half, roll it in on itself. When we get to the end, we're going to secure that with a little hot glue in between the 2 layers. And then a little bit here to secure this flower. And then we're going to tuck the blue flower kind of right up next to the red one, kind of at an angle, building our floral arrangement. I also have this little navy daisy flower. I actually stitched it or gathered it together so it would be a little, not flat, I guess is what I want to say. And I did not film that on camera for this one, so I will need to do that at some point. I've glued both of those down. We have navy and blue. Now we have our light blue. This smaller loopy design is from, I think it's from the large daisy set actually. You could also cut down the Floral Fringe die. You could cut it in half to make a smaller loopy floral if you want. And then I have one more flower to add. For this one, we are going to use another white border die. And we are going to use a red felt ball. I'm going to wrap that white border around the red wool felt ball and secure it with hot glue and tuck it into my floral arrangement. If anything looks like it is not attached well, I'm just going to tuck or add a little bit of hot glue here and there. So let me show you that. There's my little, this is the extra small red wool felt ball from Binzi. We're going to wrap our flower around that. That's going to give us that two-tone look again. Add a little hot glue at the end. Hot glue on the bottom. Isn't that cute? Oh, I love it. And then we're just going to tuck that into our pillow, and that is going to finish off this pillow design. That is it, friends. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for these 2 felt pillow finishing ideas using Binzi dies, fabric, rickrack, and all of the things. The supplies I used to create my pillows are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Thank you guys so much for joining me for today's video. I hope you enjoyed this felt flower and felt stitching inspiration, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye! If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to my channel, click that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to always be notified when I have a new floss tube, stitching, or quilting video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.